From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. Joining us this week is State Representative Greg Harris from the 13th District, our watchdog reporter and early and often columnist Dan Mihalopoulos, and our columnist Mark Brown. This week, with the same-sex marriage law becoming law, I want to talk a little bit about the politics of that and how that's been coming out. Let's just start off with Pat Quinn. Does he deserve the accolades and all the accolades he was getting?
Well, there's just so much joy around the state, and so many, thousands of people have really worked for this moment. It's just wonderful to see, and the governor was out there on the forefront, early on saying he supported this, and I think we're all grateful. And if we had had another governor who had said he would have vetoed this, we would not be seeing all these couples getting married today.
So that's a reference to Bruce Rauner, who at one point did say that. Does it matter at this point? I mean, it is law. Is it sort of, that's behind us, and
well, it's one of the most important issues of the day if you look at what's going on around the country, whether you consider it a social issue, a cultural issue, or a legal issue. It's before the legislatures, it's before the courts. You would think people would have a position on it and be willing to say out loud whether they believe in equality for all families or whether they don't believe in equality for all families.
So his campaign coming out on the day that Quinn was appearing at some of these ceremonies, and they said, well, we wish them very happy, long lives. Is he giving mixed messages there? Does he want it both ways?
Well, I wish I knew what his message was. I mean, he won't say he's for it. He won't say he's against it. He said he'd veto it. He said, well, I'd veto it, but if somebody were able to get married, I'd hope you'd have a happy life. I was at the ACLU dinner the night that, he showed up at the reception there, and we're wondering, well, does this mean you're pro-choice and pro-gay, or does it mean you're just here, rubbing shoulders with some other wealthy people? He's a very interesting guy.
Well, plus now, I believe, on Monday, he sent yet another message, which was that if there were ever a referendum to repeal it, then he could support repealing it. I think it's highly unlikely that such a referendum would even be held, but he's just trying to cover his bases.
And this whole referendum is just a misnomer as well, right? Because it can't be binding.
We don't have binding referendum.
Right, so it would have to go back to the legislature.
Yeah.
But looking at it the other way, of course, on Pat Quinn. I mean, could this be better timing for Quinn coming off of not the most successful session? Was it good timing for Quinn politically?
Well, I think clearly for Quinn, anytime Rauner is caught either in doublespeak or in these sort of ambiguous situations, it's a welcome diversion for a governor who is looking for that sort of luck and has received that sort of luck in the past in this situation against Rauner so far, as well as in other circumstances. But I think clearly we see a situation shaping up here where Rauner wants to make this election, and I think it's inevitably going to be about the financial state of the state. And that hasn't been something that Quinn wants it necessarily to be about. But having said that, it's always better for Quinn, I think, on these issues because it's undeniably a blue state on social issues, including this one.
I mean, I think he was definitely in a big hurry to change the subject after the close of the legislative session. And the budget coming out again in a way that is not going to be helpful to him and leaves more unsolved problems.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a little bit here. Dan, you've been reporting a lot about UNO Charter School and some of the problems they've had lately. Earlier this week, there was an SEC investigation that was launched. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's happening?
Right. The SEC is, as a Securities and Exchange Commission, is responsible for making sure that bond investors are not misled. And so UNO had also raised money by borrowing in the bond market. And they feel that UNO, and particularly the former CEO, Juan Rangel, gave some misleading information to bond investors about these insider deals that we wrote about.
This is not over. This investigation continues.
They agreed to have a monitor come in and oversee them. They promised never to engage in any insider contracts, conflicted transactions, I think is what they called it, ever again. But they left the door open to going after the individuals who participated in the behavior that they allege was fraudulent.
Do you see this more as a charter versus public school issue, or is this, sort of like Chicago politics sort of happened to UNO?
The lack of oversight on the part of the state for grants is not unique to charter schools. And I think that the charter school community, as it were, and there are all sorts of charter operators, has been very quiet about UNO. The people that go down to Springfield and lobby legislators such as Representative Harris on a variety of issues, particularly this session regarding the charter schools, have not had much to say about UNO because I think they very much wish that it be kept quarantined to that organization, which did seem to have more clout than almost any of the other charter schools.
And it has clout because Juan is very much a political operator and has been, and he was using these contractors for the schools to give campaign contributions in at least one state legislative race that they wanted to control.
And a fundraiser for Madigan.
And this is a very shrewd political operation, which is how they got so strong.
Let's switch to quotes of the week, and you are so prepared.
I'm prepared. I did my homework.
Why don't you give us what you brought today?
So my quote is one of the things that Bruce Rauner has taken a position on. He spoke at the Naperville Chamber of Commerce this week, and he says he's not doing what most Republicans do, and that is going to a few country clubs and going to a few farm events.
What do you have, Dan?
My quote is, "We're not done." That was the SEC official that I spoke with who said that the investigation of UNO is continuing.
My favorite quote of the week was from Greg's colleague, Representative Derek Smith, who's on trial for allegedly accepting a $7,000 bribe. He was caught on tape saying, "How is she going to get the cheddar to us?" Cheddar being one in a series of colorful ways of expressing bribe money that we've heard through the years. I think lettuce was one of the recent trials that we had.
Right, but Joe Barrios denied that he got any lettuce.
Didn't get any lettuce.
Got any salad.
Well, mine takes on a more serious tone. It's President Obama on the prisoner trade that's come under such controversy. Quote, "We saw an opportunity and we seized it. I make no apologies for that." Thank you for joining us this week on Off Message, and we will see you next week.